From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality. Bring it on, baby!
I would say the biggest skincare myth is using 10,000 serums. I don't believe that anymore.
All right, ladies, let's play ball.
Welcome back to Meet Bridget Season 5. I'm Kashia Rosenberg, and I co-host this show alongside my best friend, Asha Gabriel. Our mission is to build a giant library of career and life path options for young women to relate to by sharing the honest and unfiltered teenage and adult stories of a diverse array of successful women. We believe confidence starts with self-trust and grows through authentic community. And that by tapping back into our formative years, we can really make this Meet Bridget community a place where women of all ages and stages can connect on common ground. It's truly a labor and mission of love. So today I'm really excited to bring an absolute angel and badass of a human being to our show. Aesthetic nurse practitioner and proud boy mom Oanh Nguyen with over a decade of experience. She's been working in the aesthetics community, and she's passionate about creating beauty and balance, both at work and at home. As an incredible nurse practitioner, she specializes in and is known for her magic touch. You can see it right here on my face. She creates supernatural looking results by focusing on healthy skin and creating individualized treatment plans for her patients. She's also a firm believer in work-life harmony and that it's key to cherishing the precious formative years with her little one. So she's 2 young boys under 7. We're going to get into all of it. Welcome to the show, Oanh. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Like I was saying a few minutes ago before we started recording, I really admire you. I've known you now for over a decade. Just working in the medical community in Los Angeles it's a small little place. You know, you see a lot of familiar faces over the years, but you're somebody who I have just loved watching grow. I really admire. You're such a powerhouse. You're an expert at everything you do. You've worked with some of the most renowned physicians and plastic surgeons in the Los Angeles area, and you're just frankly incredible. So I'm so excited to share some of those pearls of wisdom with our audience. I would love to start with hearing a little bit about your background, where you're from, maybe a little bit about your family, where you grew up, things like that.
Well, I'm Vietnamese, so I grew up in Westminster. I'm an only child. Part of my childhood was in the East Coast in
Okay.
And even though I grew up in Orange County for the most part, that just like those 3 or 4 years in the East Coast actually affected me a lot. And so when I went over there, it was because my dad was he was going through residency, and he wasn't around very much. Very strict, super strict household. But when I went over to the East Coast, I kind of had that slice of wonder years kind of thing. But growing up for the most part, I was, it's basically surrounded by like my dad having to start medical school all over again. And so in Orange County, it was like literally living in a library. I couldn't make a lot of sound. He was always studying. And then it took him like another 10 years from being a doctor in Saigon to being a doctor in America. So I kind of grew up being very reserved and more on the quiet side. As an only child, I had to really just entertain myself, I guess. And so, having friends is like, very important to me. And, and cousins and things like that. But basically I am probably the poster child of tiger dad household kind of thing. And it's a very strict household until college. So.
Wow. So your dad was a doctor in Saigon and had to just start all over after emigrating to America. What kind of medicine did he practice?
So he's an internalist. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the adult pediatrician kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But going back to my background, my parents actually escaped Vietnam, and I'm a refugee baby. I was born in a refugee camp and
Oh
things
my
like that. So
gosh.
they started off like super nothing, and then mom worked, and dad went to school, that kind of thing. So yeah, he's an internalist, but most of his career was actually in the state prison system. So you can
Wow.
imagine he did not know how to turn that off when he came home. So on top of being really strict,
Mm-hmm.
it was really strict kind of thing. Just didn't say much. He'll express his like, more of anger than like, happiness, that kind of thing. So, but that was my
Mm-hmm.
upbringing.
I can imagine because it's such a jarring way. I mean, you hear, I'm the product of immigration, but you hear a lot of stories of families who come to the United States seeking a better life.
Mhm.
You also hear stories of, sorry, my headphone was falling out, of people escaping political, violence and upheaval. And I'm presuming that your parents left Vietnam during wartime to come to the United States to seek asylum and, to survive, basically.
Yeah.
Um, was there a pipeline for your dad to like go back to medical school, or did they just have to wait out the war and then start over? And
I believe when you're a foreign doctor,
Mhm.
whatever country, you have to start over in the United States. So in his case, and from what he told me, not every foreign doctor that comes into the United States makes it. So, they end up doing, like something else that's not so rigorous, than medical school. But I think for him, his background is that he is the oldest son out of 11 kids. Like his strictness came from his father. So there's no room to not do it. Like there's no room to fail. Like he just had to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no option, especially when you have a family.
Mhm.
You mentioned going to New Jersey for your dad's residency and that it was like a Wonder Years stage. What was magical or different about that for you?
It was so we were located. We were where we lived was all residents, and there was
Hmm.
some, one or two people that actually own, the townhouse within that. Basically, that it's like a block, I guess you can say. And I made really good friends with the kids around the neighborhood, and I actually had a neighborhood dad. And so with my dad missing, he kind of filled in those shoes. And so he was like, I mean, the kind of dad that you will see on like a sitcom where you're like, I want that kind of dad. I had that experience. And so, and I had a lot of freedom because my dad was always at work and always doing his thing, and my mom was, at work too. So I had that childhood where I'd ride bikes around the neighborhood. I just had a curfew. I was like 10 years old. It's very different than California. I feel like California was very, people fear more like kidnapping kind of thing. Not so
Hmm.
much over there,
Hmm.
even though it was so much older. It looked much more urban. But just that freedom where I was just so independent and had that family unit, when my own was missing, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a lot of friends, like neighborhood kids, and you guys played around and stuff?
Yeah.
It does, it feels so magical because I feel like I've said this before in previous interviews and just in conversations in general. I feel kind of like our generation is sort of the last to like really have that playing outdoors until the street lights come on kind of
Yes.
thing. No technology, no phones to like constantly be on as a distraction. And so it really does feel like a magical memory when you think back about it.
Yeah, it's 100% like that.
Yeah. So you said you had to entertain yourself a lot. What were some of the things that you were really interested in as a kid?
I mean, like, New Jersey was so different where I was able to, go meet up with my friend's house all the time. But the moment we came
Hmm.
back to California, I was like the strictness like was very heavy. Like I
Hmm.
didn't go to friends' houses. I didn't, like my cousins will come over, things like that. But it wasn't like I was alone a lot. And
Hmm.
so I developed I just love to organize. I love to just make, and that carries on for me as an adult. If you know when Oanh has been in the room or Oanh has everything's organized, and it just feels really good. But like as a kid, I'll do a lot of like arts and crafts for myself. And one time my aunt came in and she entered the room, and you know how like you make those like construction papers where you link, you kind of link them, and I had it all over the room like as if like I was having a little fiesta going on. I'll do things like that, and I'll change things up all the time, but then and reorganize it, and that just kept me busy, I guess.
The artist was emerging. I could see it because I've worked side by side with you briefly, but you get a sense of people very quickly, or at least I feel like I do. And like everything down to like the tray that you're working on is meticulous. And so I can completely imagine just you being very like those organizational skills setting in so early, but it kind of being a part of the artistry.
Speaking of artistry, it's funny because like one of my patients asked me, "Oh, you must be a really good artist. You must draw really, really well." And honestly, no, I'm not. Like I am. My 7-year-old draws better than I do, and I think it's just because I'm very particular. I'm picky, and that came from my childhood. I'm very organized. Like I like things a certain way, kind of thing. And that's what you probably witnessed when we're working together too, or when I'm doing your treatments or whatever.
Yeah, it's the attention to detail that is, I think, unrivaled.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's me.
So with your parents, did your mom work in the healthcare industry as well? Was she medical at all?
She was, but with animals. She was a manager of a pet hospital. So as a kid growing up, I was always in the hospital setting. So with my mom, I would always play with little puppies or kittens, and I'll see them go into with the doctor, with the vets and things like that. And with my dad, him and his side with his vets.
Yeah, you couldn't escape it. Did you feel like from a young age you had a sense that you would be in the medical community, that you'd pick a career in healthcare, or was this something that like your parents encouraged you to do, or a mixture of both?
I think as a kid, yes, because it was so familiar. It was just kind of like ingrained in me. But the moment I got into college towards the last years, I started to change my mind. I did major in biology, but I just did it just to do it. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I was just kind of, oh, well, this is your destiny. Like this was what you did with. But the moment I graduated, I decided to do, I did try to, and I guess we'll get into that, dabble into applying for schools. I wasn't too serious about college, like with schoolwork, my GPA wasn't that great. But I moved on from that, and I was like, I was influenced by how my friends that weren't going for medicine, they went for business and they were starting to make money. And I was just like, was curious. And so I ended up not going the medicine route. And I just wanted to find out for myself what that's like. I did not like it. And then that would made me come back. But I had to find out for myself rather than like, oh, you have to do this kind of path, and then not know what the other path would be like, kind of thing. So my career path was a
windy one.
No straight line.
That's okay. That's often how the best products are made and the most progress.
Yeah.
Did you feel like with a strict Vietnamese upbringing, I think this is, as a generalization and as, an Asian person, there is that, there's that stigma or that expectation, especially of oldest daughters, and I'm sure as an only child, that you go down a specific route. And I know you mentioned that you enrolled in a biology major because that's just what it felt like had to happen. Did your parents play a role in also like telling you needed to do something, or were they similarly just like they just had an expectation and then it was just going to happen kind of thing?
I think it was both. It was both. Definitely like, encouraged to go through the medicine route because it's stable, that kind of thing. He kept saying that to me when I was younger. I didn't understand what that meant. He's like, you got to go this way. It's stable. You'll have a good life, that kind of thing. But the expectations were high, of course, because
Yeah.
With my dad's upbringing, he had no room for failure. He grew up in a really poor household with 11 brothers and sisters, and they 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 basically focused on him being the golden child. And like I do hear my aunts who are older, have resentment towards that because they're like, how come I didn't get focused on? So he projected that on me, kind of thing, and I felt that too.
Is he the youngest or the oldest in
He's
the lineage?
he's number 5 out of his siblings and the oldest son. So he had like,
He's just the golden child.
yeah, because he's basically the male kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, was he the only boy?
No, he has 3 other brothers.
Okay. Okay. No, it's so interesting because I feel like in most societies, I think this persists, but I see it in my family. I feel like the males are always, there's this specialness about boys. And, it's obviously societal and everything, but like my brother, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and then I have a younger brother. I have 2 at this point. But my mom sometimes will be like, "Oh, my oldest child," and I'm like, "Mom," like,
Oh,
and it's totally, she like loves all of us, but there's something in like the family mindset, at least for some families, where it's like, oh, there's a golden child, there's like a prince, there, you know what I mean? So, I can see, when that honor is bestowed upon you, how those particular people end up making it their mission throughout life to just be very like on a straight and narrow and, fulfill the role that was bestowed upon them.
yeah, and I can imagine the kind of pressure too, even though they are the child. So yeah, I mean,
you can't step out of line. So, okay, so you started college, and you decided to major in biology. What did you like or not like about your program that started shifting your focus in different ways?
Well, I think like because I grew up in such a like, tiger dad, super strict household kind of thing. The moment I went to college and I had to move away for that, it was like unleashing the beast kind of thing. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that, right?
Yeah,
Like I had the taste of like adult freedom kind of thing, a young adult freedom. And it was, it definitely affected like my GPA, going to those classes, biology, organic chemistry, biochemistry. It was like, it's hard, and it was very difficult. But, I got through it. I graduated and, didn't have the best GPA. And, just thinking about like, oh my gosh, now I have to think about going to some sort of like, PA school, nursing school, medical school, whatever. That's additional schooling when I was already like, oh, kind of taking a break kind of thing. And so the moment I graduated, the pressure was on, like, what are you going to apply for kind of thing. And then that's when things started to shift. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this kind of thing. But during, undergrad doing biology was just kind of going through the motions. It was just something that it was required for me to do. If I look back, if I were to change my major, yeah, I think I would, like I would probably want to go into psychology or just something that I'm interested in. I didn't really think about that at that time when I was 18 years old.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to see the forest through the trees, or however the saying goes, especially at that stage in life. Coming from a very strict household, like you go from being so hyper focused on a goal, but when it's not necessarily your goal, when it's just what you feel like you have to do, and then you go out into the world and you realize there are all these different things. I think it's really easy to feel sort of like not lost necessarily, but maybe like the existential crisis. You're like, oh, there are these other things that I could do, and you start to kind of fight with yourself.
Exactly.
I can really relate to that, as I'm sure so many people can, because you have all these expectations of you and you put these expectations on yourself. And so it makes it difficult to really land on what you want right away. When you graduated, what was like, you mentioned you were feeling a little like burnt out or like not unsure of what direction you were going to go in, despite having, a lot of external pressure to like pick something. What was the next step for you?
So while my last 2 years, I think the last couple of years of college, I was actually working at an optometry office at that time, and just like part time, kind of make some income, that kind of thing. And so after graduating, I didn't go through the medical school route. That was very clear, that especially like how my grades were going, that was not going
Yeah.
to happen. So after I graduated, it was just one of those things like, well, I was already working in optometry, so I guess I'll just go into this. Like I kind of feel like I knew it, kind of thing. And so I, you know, I basically, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. I just thought like, okay, I'm just gonna apply. Well, in my mind, like, well, I already have like the, working for an optometrist kind of intern, like know the business. I have her on my side. And then like my dad was trying to like use his friends to write me a letter of recs. But then like I didn't, it was one of those things like I should have, looking back, I didn't really deserve it, It was just here, let's get you going, kind of thing. But then like I'm mentally ready for it. Absolutely not, so I applied. I did get like an interview. I flew to in Boston. At that time, I was like, I still felt like, like I was it was a favor. And it felt like it was something that I deserved. But, I didn't get in. And I believe I tried twice. And at that time, I was like, I'm over it. Like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to try something different. And so I left, and I ended up working with my friend. She was doing basically commercial leasing, like we'll call businesses to see if they need loans and things like that. 180 of what I was doing. And that was a big eye opener. I did that for like about 2 years. It made me see how hard, people in that industry, how hard they had to hustle rather than having, go to, try to go to school again and have a skill kind of thing. And after, I absolutely hated my life. I was like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? But during those years when I was doing that, my dad was on me. He was just like, what are you doing with your life? It's like, are you really making that good money? I mean, I can't lie. Like he just like, you're just making, kind of like
Were you living at home at the time?
I was, yes, I was, I was still living at home, and they'll see me kind of come in and out, and, my dad would be like, he will basically lecture me because what he's witnessed with his friends doing the same thing, kind of like giving me the scolding kind of look. And I just felt like huge disappointment kind of thing. So, there was a turning point where he actually said to me, it was just me and him. Like it was during that time where I tried to avoid him because I just felt that tension building.
Yeah.
Right. And then this one time he was just like, I'm so embarrassed when my friends ask me about you. Like, I don't know what to tell them. Like, you're such a loser to me, Yeah. And he's like, what are you doing with your life? Like, really, like, do you really think this is the route to go? He's like, oh, I can't even look at you kind of thing. And
oh my God.
Yeah, it was harsh. And that's just how he is with me. But that was probably one of the harshest words. And it was already on my mind that I wanted to go back to school to pursue something like, like basically like, you're right, medicine's the route kind of thing, So I used that moment. I was pretty angry actually. But at the same time, like, I was like, he's right. Like what am I doing? And so I ended up going back to school. So after graduating, it has been like 4 years. And I knew when I have to apply, it'll probably take another year. So if you apply back to school, and it's been after 5 years after undergrad, your classes and grades are expired. So I had to go back and retake those prerequisite classes, chemistry, all that stuff. And I basically started to enroll into community colleges. So I went to 4 at one point because it was so hard to get into all the classes. So Orange Coast College, Coastline College, what else? Golden West, and I went all the way up to Pasadena for Mount Sac just for a class. And then
oh my God.
It took me another like a year, almost 2 years to get it all together and then for me to apply again. But then
Oh
at
my
that
God.
point, I had to reach that breaking point where I'm like, okay, now I know what I want in life, but
Yeah.
it's not long kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds so harsh, especially by American standards. I'm sure there are going to be people listening that are like, oh my gosh, like clutching at their pearls because, especially nowadays as parents, like it's all about gentle parenting and acknowledging emotions
Validation.
and validation. I cannot imagine talking to my son like that now, but I can really, and maybe it's also because at that point you were an adult, your dad's looking at you and leveling with you and saying like, hey, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Was it the anger that really like fueled you? Because it hurts, to hear a parent or somebody that you respect tell you something like that or use language like that. But you used it as a catalyst to jumpstart your career and as a foundation for everything that you do now. Did you like, is there resentment for your dad, or do you feel like now you understand it? Or did you have to like just get through the anger and like push yourself through it and like now looking back it like makes sense?
It was a little bit of everything because like
Mhm.
yeah, for sure the anger instead of you taking that anger and kind of like you know going down the abyss of like self pity or whatever
Mhm.
I kind of like used it to like you said, I used it to fuel myself. um
Mhm.
so it was part of mostly what I did was more for myself, because they
Mhm.
did raise me to be independent, just don't rely on anybody, just do everything for yourself kind of thing. But of course, there's that side where I'm like, I want to make him proud and things like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was mostly for me at that time because when I chose what to do, even though he said that to me, I was like, I'm doing this for myself, and that's why I was more motivated to do it rather than like, oh my god, I have to do this for my dad. Like, no,
Yeah,
it
that's
changed.
a really key.
Mhm.
I think that's a really key mindset shift that you tapped into because a lot of people in the same situation would have folded,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have been wrong for doing it. It's hurtful when you have those kinds of encounters, but it's a really good example of how you can take something that angers you or hurts your feelings and shift yourself into like, okay, how do I take back ownership over this and take control and then find a way to be successful with this
Mhm.
for me, not for the person that, you know, hurt me or gave me a scolding, even when it's your parents.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like honestly, that conversation basically like it changed my life, and the job I hate. It was like a combination of everything that
Yeah.
was going on at the time, and but I also do credit my upbringing,
Mhm.
just witnessing my dad study and study and study, and just like he just really got it done kind of thing. Very
Yeah.
disciplined. And so for me to go through, having to take my classes over and basically it was a major setback. Now, I still witness my friends, living their life, going like vacations and start to even like start getting engaged and, things like
Hmm.
that. It's like, oh my gosh, and I felt like I was still in college, because I had to start over. And,
Yeah.
but with my upbringing, it gave me that discipline to do it, to keep moving forward and like don't quit, just go, just eye on the prize kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think like if I didn't have that, it might have had a different outcome. Besides like
Yes, for sure.
yeah, besides like my dad like really you know said all the things kind of thing.
For sure. I mean, there's no right way to be a parent, honestly. Like I had just come to this realization recently where I'm like, I try so hard to do everything right in one regard. I'm still gonna mess up my kid somehow. Like 20 years from now, he's gonna be like, Mom, I'm in therapy because you said this instead of this. And it's not
True.
because I don't love him or like am doing the best that I can. And I know the same is true of our parents. And your parents especially were, I don't even know if I could say dealt a hand, but they had to overcome so much to get here, to raise you. It's an entire journey, and we could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
Um, At what point during so now you've gotten to this point in your educational career, which by the way, I think is really commendable that even as you're seeing your peers hit, milestones or hit different parts of your life that you may have felt like, oh, I should be doing this already, you still kept your eyes on the prize and completed your goals. And that's really difficult to do because I feel like the second you hit adulthood, and especially these days where like teenagers feel like the pressure to brand themselves and like know who they are and have an online presence, like it's really increasingly difficult to say like, oh, I need to change directions or I need to do something that's completely different from what everyone else around me is doing. Like that takes an immense amount of discipline and just like a setting aside of your own ego to make sure you're doing what's right for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredible. But at what point did you start to feel the shift toward like the aesthetics industry or the beauty industry?
So going I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. So when I started to apply for schools, I had the stellar GPA. I volunteered, like resume, looked great. So I had my eye on being a PA, and so I did apply for schools. And I actually got really great interviews like USC, Western, like, all the schools that PAs really want to go to. Again, didn't get in. I must be a really bad interviewer,
It's an extremely competitive landscape.
But so like I was 30 years old at the time, and I just felt like, oh man, like, do I do it again? Like, and then a friend of mine, she's a pharmacist. She's like, why don't you just apply for nursing school? Apply to West Coast University. Like, it's one of those schools that are easier to get in. She's like, just start your life already. Just go. And I'm like, at that time, I'm like, I was a little arrogant. I was like, well, I interviewed at USC, at Western. Like, I don't want to go to nursing school. I felt like I was above it.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. I'm 30 years old already. Let's just start the thing. And I started nursing school, and the first semester really humbled me. And I was like, I will never like think I'm above nursing school ever again. The curriculum or the program was very, very challenging, as you're a nurse too. Of course, huge respect, right? So after I graduated, or no, I was still in school actually. I thought like, like every nurse, I'm gonna go work at a hospital, do bedside manner. That's that's what nurses do, right? So, but I had a friend that was working at a plastic surgeon's office. So she's one of my best friends, and she was working at a plastic surgeon's office, Dr. Charles Lee, and she's like, they're interviewing. I'm like, technically I'm not done with school yet. I'm still in school. I'll be done like in a month or two. And she's like, it doesn't matter. Just get your butt in here and just interview. And she would like give me like real time, like, oh my gosh, they just interviewed a really cute Japanese girl. I was like, okay.
just try. Supposed to make me feel better.
So I went in and I got it. And so I was like, so he gave me a chance. They knew, I haven't graduated yet. I don't even have my license yet. He's like, just start in front. I was just a receptionist, and I graduated. And once I graduated and passed, got my license, he moved me to the OR, and that's basically how my career started. But I started as an OR surgical nurse. That's where I met you. But working from that office and then shifting over to where we worked at Dr. Keo's office, it was, I honestly did not want to go into aesthetics. I went over there thinking like, oh, maybe I'll learn new things. I felt so, the OR was home. It was just very familiar with it. It was just like, boom, you get things done. Like,
it's a good place for somebody who likes organization. Yeah. It's very, very sterile.
Yes, 1000%. Dr. K was like, okay, let's teach you into aesthetics. And I did not like it at first. I did not. It was so stressful. I even told him, I was just like, I like the OR. I kind of want to stay in here, but he actually encouraged me and pushed me to do it. And that's that's where it all started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where did the shift start to happen where you were like, oh, I actually enjoy this?
Honestly, so I met you like a decade ago ish.
Yeah.
Been, I say like probably 4 years into the more I
Wow.
started doing it. Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like a lot of people when they see like, especially like, we get those aesthetic providers that's on Instagram looks really glamorous,
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, the lip filler and like the Botox and things like that. There's a high learning curve to that, even with the
Mhm.
lasers and things like that. And you could really, screw up kind of thing, which
Yeah.
I had in the beginning a lot because I didn't really have my mentor.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I didn't have. I did have Dr. Ko show me the ropes, but he was so busy. And so they
Mhm.
moving in lines then. And so I had to figure things out on my own and,
Mhm.
did all the trainings as much as I could. But yeah, it took me 4 years to really be like,
Wow.
get comfortable and
Comfortable.
enjoy what I started to do.
One of the things that I want to point out is that, there are I don't know, hundreds, thousands of med spas like in the Los Angeles and greater Los Angeles area, not to mention all over the world. Like
Yeah.
everyone wants to look better, feel better. Wellness is now like a big thing. It's it's really easy, and you mentioned the learning curve, which I think is really important for people to hear. It's really easy to like slip into the mindset of like, oh, I'll just go become an injector, or I'll just go to this nurse or this nurse. It's very rare and special to find a provider who is not just good at what they do, but you're also thinking about like the safety issues about it, because there is this whole, like, there's so many ways that something could go wrong. Like,
Mhm.
even for something as quote unquote simple as like Botox or lip filler, which is like rampant. Like, if you have a person, an injector, a provider who just doesn't care about the safety, doesn't care about like keeping up with the science behind it, or, what could go wrong, or somebody who just says yes to everything, like, you could lose your lips, like your skin could fall off. It's not just like a one and done, like easy thing. Uh, where do you feel like your ethos lies? Because I know you to be like the most stringent, like you're very firm and gentle, but like very, very informative and patient with people. You really take your time to do things the right way, but no one forces you or any provider to do that. So where does that come from? Where does like doing the right thing come from?
Yeah, honestly, it comes from experience because like,
Mhm.
in the beginning when I started to do it, like, with the injections with the dermal fillers and, with, I would say like mostly with the dermal fillers, I think that's where the experience where how I was when I started versus now has completely changed. And
Mhm.
it's really what like, so I do have patients who have stuck with me for a very long time, and I see how I treated them back then, and I can still see it today. So I see how long these dermal fillers last and how it's changed them, and then so I incorporate it to my more current, patients as time goes by. Like, okay, I became much more conservative with it because,
Mhm.
as there are reports now saying that, even though dermal filler is indicated to last up to 12 to 18 months, whatever, it's showing that's lasting a lot longer. And
Mhm.
so, with that said, unfortunately, even though aesthetic medicine is medicine, it is elective medicine. Like you mentioned, there's so many med spas out there. It is, income like it's what is it, profit driven,
Yeah.
where you're gonna encounter a lot of providers that that are gonna push on A, B, C, D, and E, even though you technically don't need it, but it's
Mhm.
for their just for their numbers kind of thing. And so that's another thing that I fought as well too. Try to stay true to myself and what I think is um, you know, appropriate for the patient, but then also listening to the patient what they want, what their aesthetics
Mhm.
want, and I'll give them back my 2 cents kind of thing. And so I believe like my niche is just very, I like to celebrate unique beauty. I'm not trying to cookie cutter every single person to looking like another Kardashian or whatever,
Yeah.
but it doesn't fit everybody. And even though some people do request it, it's as time went by, like, especially with my office now, we have two providers and we're very different in terms of our aesthetics, and they know how to patient match. And so, when the patient wants just something very conservative, very light, more restorative, that's all me all day long.
Yeah.
I do feel like everyone has, like, they're beautiful in their own way. And I hope patients feel that from me, when we talk and things like that, and we're trying to change things and kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
I was going to say, I can attest firsthand because I was always so scared to do anything to my face. And, I haven't hit like a period in my life where I want to do that much to my face, but On does a little bit of my Botox. And most places you go in and they're like, oh, it's a 40 unit minimum. Like, you got to do this. And I'm like, well, I like moving my forehead. Like, and you are somebody that will sit and say, okay, this is like, if that's the goal you want to achieve, this is what I recommend. And let's start out slow and small. Yeah. And it's really, really refreshing because anywhere else you go, like, I have a nightmare story with like laser away. I wanted to like get a tattoo removal, and it's very different from like Botox, but they did like just hours of trying to upsell you to the point that I like forfeited my credit and my money there. Cause I was like, I don't even want to go in. Like, I don't want to buy anything else.
Oh my God. It's so uncomfortable, right? Like,
it's so uncomfortable.
I mean, the med spa is like, when we have meetings and, like, it's, we talk about numbers, and it is a numbers thing. And it's, it annoys me. I don't like it. Cause when I focus on my patient, I just want to focus on what they need. I want to be that one patient, especially when, patients have been with me for so long. Every time they come in, they're like, and I'm trying to sell them something or trying to, like, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, chill out. So I've always tried to keep really true to myself. And I think I'm very, very grateful to see the following that I have with that. And no matter how much pressure I get from whatever office that I work at, I still stick with it. And it's like, if I don't match the culture of the office in terms of like what they want profit wise, then I'm okay with moving on, kind of thing. And so, I'm in that space right now. So
maybe it's a little bit of your tiger parents, just, that's their legacy. It's just like, stay true to yourself and your integrity, which is, increasingly more and more rare. Everything's a business, unfortunately. I mean, the truth is we live in a capitalist society, but I think there is a way to balance integrity with the business model. And I think you do that really seamlessly. One of the things I really want to talk about is your journey to becoming a family nurse practitioner / aesthetic nurse practitioner, which you did in the midst of not just working full time, I believe, but also building your family. I mean, you have 2 young sons under the age of 7, I think.
Yeah. Gosh, where did I even come from? Like, because having kids is like, you're so busy, and then working, like a working parent. That's like, you don't have time for yourself, right? The one time for yourself is right after they go to bed, and you're just sitting there with your phone and just like, doing doom scrolling, right? It honestly it stemmed from working at Dr. Kale's office. Like I felt like I didn't feel like it was my end game being like as an RN. Especially the way he gave, he really gave me a lot of independence, kind of thing. And he instilled that into me too, work that. And I wanted more. And so I had a conversation with with both of my parents. I'm like, I think I want to go back to school. I think I want more with my RN license. I think because of going back to, my beginnings of like, parents, wanted me to be a doctor and things like that. And so the whole notion of like, just keep going, just strive higher kind of thing was always in me. And so I had the conversation with my parents, and they said, go for it, like if you need us to watch your kids, more, it's only 2 short years. It's, we're more than happy to do that. And of course, with
that's so great. That's so great.
And honestly, it was the biggest the biggest factor. The reason why I was able to get through this is my husband. He really took it on. Like, my parents and his parents, they'll probably like take like one day, but the schedule with them stayed the same. But he really took on like, bathing them, like making their food and things like that. And it still carries on till today because he got so used to it, which I actually love. But he was my biggest supporter kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hard. Oh my gosh. Looking back, I was like, how the heck did I do that? Like going to school, work.
Yeah.
Kids kind of thing. But
it's hard. It's hard, even with a supportive partner, just for both of you working and then being a parent at its baseline, it's difficult. And then to just start stacking on the responsibilities. Yeah. It's intense.
It was basically like the day would be like, go to work, like, see the kids in the morning, go to work, come back, get them ready, to go to bed, and then work on papers till midnight, and then start all over, do that, all over again. But my sister-in-law, she had her own kid, and she, her daughters are, it's like 2 years old. She's like, I think I'll go back to work one day. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Maybe, that's a good break. And then, make some income, and it'll be like a nice little balance. She's like, how do you do it? And she's like, I'm nervous going back for one day.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you want something, you make it happen. No matter how busy you are.
Oh my gosh. Also, best advice ever. And I remember my dad used to say a version of that, like when I was a teenager into young adulthood, like before I got married. He'd be like, if you're dating somebody and they like, this is true across the board. If you want something, if anyone wants something, they make it happen. And I was like, that's really good advice. Like in a career, in a relationship, it's like people, if you want something, 99% of the time it gets done.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was hard and torturous, and 2 years felt like 10 years, but like, but then going back to school at 40 versus going back to school at 30, so different. The focus, the drive is so different. At 30, going back to, starting nursing school, watching all my friends start their lives, getting engaged, getting married, buying a new house, things like that. Versus now, like at age 40, my focus was way easier, even though it felt like so much easier. Because now more than ever, I know exactly what I want. I'm okay with not having a social life and things like that. Like, I'm okay with that. I got that out of my system. The only time I wanted was really like all my free time was with my kids. And so, and this was to, I always joke like, oh, I went back to school so I could afford my kids. They're expensive, right? And I like nice things in life. So
yes. But you have the best style of anyone I know. You're just so cool.
Your style too.
Thanks. So, I mean, you've answered so many questions that I've had about like from balancing and goal setting and accomplishment to like balancing the day to day. I mean, it's really great having an amazing partner who can like take on the brunt. And I also love how now modern dads are, there's a lot more role sharing than I think in previous generations, because like if I have to stay late or do something, my husband is like, it's seamless. And I think that's so great for our son to be able to see like dad cooking dinner and mom going to work. And like, there's not so much like pigeonholing of like one person only does this and one person only does that.
100%.
As your kids get older, what would you say are some of like your biggest like wins? Because your sons are so well-rounded. They're adorable. They're well-rounded. And I think, I'm asking for myself and also for our audience, how do you accomplish so much and still like stay present and like really have that one-on-one time where you can teach them, you know, how to be kind, studious, lovely human beings?
While I was in school, my younger one was, he's still really little. He he wanted mommy a lot, mama's boy kind of thing, and so I had a little disconnect with my older one. And that kind of I guess it kind of happens like when you have like your second child, you have to focus on the child, the baby, and then the older one tends to kind of favor the dad, because the
Mhm.
attention wise. Anyways, what my husband and I did when I did have free time, of course, we always try to do family time as much as we can. But then if there was some sort of disconnectivity, which I did felt with my eldest, we would have one-on-one dates. So we'll have like
Yeah.
mommy meet kind of times. It would make such a huge difference, kind of thing. Like instead of him kind of like, being a little brat towards me, which kind of, that's when I knew there's disconnectivity. He's a
Yeah.
pretty good kid, but he wouldn't listen to me or things like that. So when we connected on a one-on-one level, he would just sit next to me, hold my arm, and like, but during those times we'll just talk about like, friendships and how school and talk about his little brother, like how, he's little, you are the bigger brother, you might have to like, protect him, the
Mhm.
little things like that. And try not to compare. That was one of the
Yeah.
biggest things my husband and I, like, even like saying like, oh, well, your brother ate faster than him. Like, no, that's a form of comparison. Like, let's
Yeah.
not do that. Let's be more aware of it. Uh,
Yeah.
but fast forward to today, we do so much family time together. Like, we're all really close in our own little ways. And we try to, I guess, because on the days that we have off and spend time with the kids, that's when we kind of do like the talking and kind of like
Yeah.
doing like the, I guess, like the parental teaching, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
My husband the other day, he did ask me like, yeah, would you want, you can have like a girls' weekend, go do your, I know your friend's turning this age or whatever. And
Yeah.
I told him, like for the foreseeable future, I have no interest in doing that. I'll
Mhm.
definitely celebrate my friends, but all my free time, I just want to hang out with the kids because they're growing up so fast. It's like
Yeah.
they're 7 kind of thing. But I feel like because of that family time, it really shows how connected we are, kind of thing. And you see how like my kids are so kind and so patient, and we're very
Mhm.
lucky. Maybe it's a reflection of like genetics, where my husband and I are both really chill
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't,
I
yeah,
think having a calm environment is really nice, you
yeah,
know, for kids. I think it makes a huge difference. And
yeah,
I
and
think your kids are so lucky to have you and your husband, but like just to have like such a strong feminine role model, like you
yeah.
do it all and it's really incredible.
Well, I mean, got to credit the support that I have for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I would love to keep you for hours because I feel like there's so many different tangents we can go on, and I definitely would love to have you back on the show. But out of respect for your time as a mom who works and, you know, has limited time with her kids, I want to kind of start wrapping up the interview with something we do called Fast Five, where I just ask you some fun 5 quick questions just to start wrapping up the interview, and then we'll end with one meaningful question that we ask all of our guests. So
okay,
if you're ready,
yeah, go for it.
okay, number one, favorite treatment to provide.
Favorite treatment to provide? Honestly, microneedling. It's it's one of those treatments that's been around forever. It's tried and true. I just love the result of it. It just hits everything. Like it will make your skin firmer, like as if you just had Botox. Everything's just
Yeah.
brighter and it's just healthy and just overall happiness. But yeah, microneedling is my favorite. Mhm.
Okay, cool. I'll have to try it.
You haven't tried it yet? But
No.
you know what? You're still young. You still have like you have like amazing
Mm,
up
I'm
until you
getting up there.
try it, you'll love it. You'll see why people do it all the time, kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Number two, next big beauty trend that you foresee.
Next beauty trend, the regenerative medicine. the exosomes, the salmon DNA, that that will couple with the microneedling, get it into your skin, even injecting it. That is the biggest next thing for sure. I also think like people are going to start over in terms of like what they did in the past with dermal filler. There, the Lindsay Lohan faces, the Christina Aguilera face, very just tighter,
Clean
not
and
so
fresh.
pillowy. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Number 3, biggest skincare myth.
Using, I would say the biggest skincare myth is using 10,000 uh, 10,000 serums. That's I don't believe that anymore. Like I know I get very triggered when I hear Sephora and Ulta. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of good stuff there, but I definitely believe like you just choose 2 to 3 things that's meant for you, that's really really good and medical grade, and that's all you need. That's all you need. You don't need like, oh, I need the essence. I need like A B C D E F G, like the 17 skincare program. No, that's a whole myth, big time.
Okay. Okay. Number 4, favorite skincare brand right now and why?
Favorite skincare brand. I'm gonna look over to my vanity really quick. I really love Elastin.
Oh, good.
I love it. It's I have like 2 or 3 in my head right now, but I feel like Elastin is it's the science is behind it. It just works. It's so hydrating. It you definitely see a difference. Like I have patients that it's a little pricey because it's medical grade, but I have patients who's like, oh, hesitate to buy it. They try it, they use it for 3 months. They're like, I don't know if I can continue it, but the moment they stop, you see it the changes kind of going back. Yeah.
Ooh, good to know. You heard it here first, folks.
Last
Okay, number 5. What's the weirdest thing in your boy mom purse?
Weirdest thing. Oh gosh. It's constantly changing. I guess, I wouldn't say it's weird, but right now, I always have like boats in my purse. Like my kids are obsessed with boats right now, like little toy boats. Because whenever
I
we
knew
go,
it was going to be something like this.
or yeah, because they always want to bring like the whole house when they go
Yeah,
out, and so I end up collecting it in my bag, or like a cat.
yeah,
They have cats, like some sort
yeah.
of animal. So
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I was writing these questions and I was like, the other day I opened up my bag and I was like, there's a tiny train in here. Like, where did this come from? Or it's like a random kitchen utensil. I'm like, why is there a wooden spoon in here? Oh my gosh. Well, the final question is something we ask all our guests. It's a little bit more reflective, but we really believe in, like I said at the beginning of the interview, how our childhood years, our teen years, those formative experiences really create this blueprint for who we end up being. And just like you as a young girl, grew up in a very organized and studious household, a very thoughtful household. I think that you've carried so much of that into your adult life and your career, and even, how patient and driven you are as a mom. So, what is one quality that you had as a young woman that perhaps you didn't notice or take pride in then, but you look back at now and you're really happy that you were that way?
So looking back at when I was back then, and then looking,
Yeah.
I think like I think I'm very confident, like but not like in a very arrogant kind of way. And it definitely came from my parents. And it really carried to who I am today. So like for me to really focus on like, my school, my career kind of thing. Like, so growing up, I was very, like when you turn into like an adolescent, you look kind of weird. Your arms are really long. You got the buck
Yeah.
teeth. I was really tan. I was outside. I remember there was one moment I was in my adolescent years, and my dad's sister, she just, we're Vietnamese. We're very blunt. She's like, oh, you're so ugly, like, you're just so ugly. And I was just like, okay, oh. And I know so I was just like, I didn't know what to say to that. She's like, oh, and so I went home that day and my dad was driving and we stopped at a stop sign. He's a very unemotional person, just stopped and he looked at me from the rearview mirror. He said, you're not ugly. Okay. You're not ugly. Don't listen to her. And that's all he said. And, of course my mom, growing up, like, oh, she's my mom, mothers tell their daughters are pretty, whatever.
Yeah.
But that one moment really like made me feel confident and just carried with me through.
Yeah. It's
now.
just not true.
Yeah. I'm just like, like I'm just weird looking, but it's just growing up, but yeah.
It's such an Asian mom thing to say.
Yeah. So I carry that to kids. Like I want them to feel internally confident. You don't have to have like that. You don't have to be perfect kind of thing. Just, I want you to feel good kind of thing. So
yeah. I love that so much. And it's so true to what we believe here at Meet Bridget. And I think just, it's a great thing to carry through life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and for sitting with me for this conversation. We laughed, like cried. I've learned so much about you and I'm so excited to share this with our community. Thank you. Where can our listeners find you?
Oh, I mean, I guess I don't really have too much. I don't have a website or anything, but you could go on Instagram and I don't really post that much, but I'm there. It's, my handle is at, Oanh, OANH_NP. I'll post like once a year. So
it's worth the follow. It's worth the follow. Well, thank you again.
Being interested in my life.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's actually a very incredible one. Well, that's all for now. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back again next week, same time.
And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.